Okay, hello. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Robin and the organisers of SteelCon for inviting me along to talk today. I did originally think I was going to be doing 2 talks. So I submitted through the CFP to do a talk on SCADA testing and getting SCADA environments up and running, and was then asked, would I do the keynote? Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine, I'll do two talks, no problem. To find that actually that's one and the same.
Your mic's not working.
Is it really? Can everybody hear me? Yeah, cool. Excellent. So what I've had to do is try and combine 2 talks into one, to try and hit some keynote, but also to provide you with some information around SCADA. So I started to see a thread forming in what I wanted to talk to you about. However, there's also a third element in this mixture, and I'm looking at the organisers of SteelCon for this. SteelCon are known for wanting to do things a little bit differently. This is going to be quite a different talk. But anyway, we'll do a bit of a normal talk to begin with, and things will go sideways shortly, trust me. Anyway, who am I? Well, my name's Campbell Murray. I'm a technical director at Encryption Limited. I was originally founder of the Tiger Scheme certification scheme back in 2007. I also founded the Cyber Scheme in 2013. I've been banging around in the information security industry for over 17 years, I think 18 years this year, I think, thereabouts. Offensive and defensive roles throughout all of those. So I've seen a number of changes, a number of developments in what we do and what we perceive to be information security and how we go about helping our customers in our roles during that time. So this is going to be a game of 2 halves, this talk. So it's going to be a few minutes of some common sense, normal talk. And well, some of it will be common sense, hopefully. Followed by something which is being dubbed blind slide. I'm not sure, I think it was John Carroll who came up with this name. What's basically going to happen, and I'm going to drag my slides out as long as I possibly can, yes I am, Mike, is to turn the conference talk on its head. There are a number of slides which have been crowdsourced, which will be stuck into this machine at some point during this talk. I have not seen them. I have absolutely no idea what's on them. I really don't. I'm terrified. What? I'll be fine. Well, apparently I'll be fine. I have been told, the only information I've been given is that there are an equal number of slides which contain Disney characters to slides which contain images of pregnant men. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, it should be a laugh if nothing else. So what I wanted to talk about partly was the sine wave of testing. Now, as I said, I've been in this industry a long time, and I've seen trends come and go over the years, particularly driven by the clients in particular. Now, I'm a pen tester first and foremost, and I started out in the government area back in sort of mid to late 90s. I've seen pen testing, or what we dubbed pen testing at the time, going from an average of a 6-month engagement, where we'd literally given a target, told nothing about it, and said, right, in between January and July, you're going to find out everything you possibly can. You will get a job at that company if needs be. You will get in there. You will extract all of their information in any way possible. Catalogue and document every single exfiltration route that this organisation or company presents you. That was when there weren't an awful lot of us in the industry knocking around. It was pretty specialist stuff. We didn't really push our heads above the parapet and say, hey, we're pen testers, because it wasn't really a thing back then. What we found was, as people like myself moved out of that sphere in which we worked and became consultants and became more commercial, we started attracting the interest of other clients, other companies, big and small, started to see the benefits of what we did. But they didn't have the same kind of budget or same drivers. The introduction of compliance, particularly around government IT health checks for the public services network, for which all public bodies have to be connected, including now from this year the police forces. To gain a PSN connection, you have to submit a code of connection, saying that you've done certain things, and part of that is to have a pen test. It's become so regulated and mandated that what we do now, and the way we win work, is based on price, not on how good you are. Schemes like the Tiger Scheme, Cyber Scheme, CREST, and CESG down at GCHQ, the scheme, the check scheme, give clients a baseline that there is satisfactory regulatory compliance around the people that they're employing. These people at least have passed a test and that they know what they're doing. But within the industry, even people who've got the qualifications, we all have slightly different approaches. And pen testing community is being largely constricted and constrained and being dictated how we actually do things. It got down to the point where a pen test, I don't know, even just a few years ago, back in sort of 2010, we were winning tests and work on the basis that, yeah, we can do your IT health check in 2 days. Boom, that's it. How much value did that actually have? Well, the clients quickly realised that there's not an awful lot of value in having a network that supports 4,000 employees being pen tested in 2 days. You're just going to get tool output. But they simply didn't want to pay for it because they had to have it done. Now we're going on the upward curve of the sine wave again, where clients are realising that we need to spend more time. We need to let these people use their imaginations, let them explore, get that bog standard mechanical part of the pen test out of the way, then go and free your minds, have a look around. What would you do? If I was an employee in a company and I worked there for a year or two and I got to really, really know the systems, I'd be exfiltrating data in all sorts of different ways that just simply wouldn't be found on a pen test. But what I'm not so happy about with the industry is the resurgence of the word red teaming, because I was a red teamer. Now, to be perfectly honest, what a red team exercise is now is a pen test, and from what I've seen of the industry, a bit of social engineering. That's not red teaming. Red teaming is taking thermite to the door hinges of a rhino steel door and burning the damn thing down, then hitting it repeatedly with a sledgehammer until it falls over. That's red teaming. So I'm not a big fan of the term being used in the context that it is now. But it does show an upsurge on the sine wave of the client's demands and client's expectations of what we do, and that we're going back to longer engagements. So we're going back to opening up the scope and saying, here you go, it's a blanket scope. This is who we are. You find out what you want to do. We don't necessarily need to know about it. We'll see if we can detect your activity and work out what's you and what's not. And that's a healthy thing for the industry. It's maturing, but it's maturing in a slightly tangential way. And by that, what I'm really looking at is the requirement for the number of pen testers. When I started in the industry, as I said, people didn't really say what they did, nobody really knew. You were aware of pockets of people doing stuff here and there. But now it's a career path. You can go to university and sit a degree in penetration testing, ethical hacking. There are loads of courses that you can take to become qualified. But we've reached a level of maturity now where the pen testers that are being produced and pushed out into the industry are being created in a very formulaic way, being given a very prescripted methodology and tool set to use, whereas the appetite for the industry is going up for us to be more inventive. And so we're going to hit, at some point in the very near future, a skills gap in its own right. Now we have people with the job titles of pen testers and with the certificates to prove that they are, who now can't meet the requirements. Getting into pen testing in the mid to late 90s was literally that nobody knew about it. You just kind of, by luck and judgment, well, not by luck or judgment, purely by chance, have ended up in that role. And that was a typical career path. But now it's a conscious choice that people have decided when going to university or when picking their employers that is something that I want to do. That's where I want to end up being. And so we're getting a completely different mindset of people into the industry. So it has matured. But there are always opportunities to learn. Not just from having a certificate and saying, boom, I'm a pen tester, I've ticked that box, I can do that job. If you think that, then we need to think of a new job title for you, because that's not what pen testers do. Pen testers have imagination and creativity. That's a defining role. There are always opportunities to learn from each other, and from every engagement which we undertake, we should be learning something new. We should be seeing something that we've never seen before. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm still learning. I learn something new every week. Which brings me on to something I'd like to put forward for people, is a notion that we've had at Encryption, particularly, and in part to do with the cyber scheme, certification program, to start a cyber academy. Now, these plans are well progressed and underway. The Cyber Academy is intended to work with government apprenticeship scheme to provide an alternative route to working in the information security industry. Now, most of the certification schemes that are available focus on penetration testing or forensics. However, in information security, when we talk about the skills gap, we're really ignoring a number of key areas. We have to ask ourselves, why are there vulnerabilities in systems? Well, number one is there are very, very few good quality courses and education paths that people can take to become developers creating robust code. There isn't really, as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, a university course where you can go and learn to code C# securely. Generally, the role of a developer is to produce code on deadline, on budget, and ship it, and we'll deal with the bugs later. And that's something that really needs to change, but there's nobody out there addressing that. Policies and documentation, I'm not a fan of. I'm just generally not a fan of paperwork, if I'm honest. But there is that role. People need to be defining policies, applying and running standards like ISO 27001. Now, there are courses you can do to become a lead auditor, but that's verifying somebody else has done it right. Where are the courses to put people in positions in corporates and organisations where they can start to manage and maintain a 27001 ISMS? These things are completely absent. The Cyber Academy is intended to take people from the age of 16 on a 2-year course, working with industry, with sponsorship, to provide key skills, such as secure coding, CCNA, CCNP, the Cyber Team CSTM. Industry placements during those 2 years, pay them a wage while they do that, and then spit them out at the end, well-rounded, well-experienced, and ahead of the curve in terms of their skills and what they can bring to the industry. And those people coming through that academy will have the opportunity to specialise, be that in defensive, be that in policy, be that in pen testing, be it in forensics, and choose a path from one of the skills options that we need out there, and enter the marketplace with that level of maturity which is at the moment I believe to be absent. So that's something that I would like you to watch the press for this. We should be making some announcements later in the year. At the moment we're still doing numbers and juggling government grants and contracts and finding venues and, and things. The first year we should be putting 25 to 26 people through in the first year. But we want it to spread, for the academies to be available in different cities around the UK as well. That's my announcement. As a very firm and very definite alternative to taking the university route. Now, no offence to universities, they work for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. But the option for many people who want to enter a deeply technical field going forward in their career is to go to university and leave with, frankly, crippling debt. Whereas the alternative is there where you can shortcut this process, enter earlier if you want to, sustain yourself on a living wage throughout, and leave with some very, very good job prospects, having already made contacts in the industry, having shadowed professionals, having spent time in placements in information security and industry companies along the way. So we'll see how it pans out. I have high hopes for it. It will be a lot of work though. So we were going to talk about SCADA. And that was what you were promised. And Robin did say you're going to get highly technical talk. Well, we're not going to get too technical, but thinking about this over the last few days, it did throw up an interesting point around what we do in the industry, how the different approaches and different attitudes people have towards pen testing, towards technology in general. Is it SCADA or is it SCADA? And the reason I bring this up is I had a really funny conversation. I'll never forget this conversation. It was many years ago. Went into a financial institute to do a sort of pre-pen test scoping exercise, have a chat with the tech guys, find out what they've got, what they're about, what do they want to get out of the activity. And one of them asked me the question, well, what sort of platforms do you use? What kind of technology are you going to be bringing in on your laptops? And I said, well, depends where we are. If we're on a government job, it might be mandated. It's got to be Windows 7 BitLocker. But, you know, by and large, we like to use a Linux operating system. And because we've got more tools, it's more configurable, we can knock up scripts quickly if we see something that we want to test out. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what Linux is. Okay, you work in IT. Do you not know what Linux is? Yeah. Okay, well, it's an open source operating system that has a slightly different kernel architecture to Windows. Oh, you mean Linux? Yeah, I meant Linux, mate. And this is something that I find quite often is the snobbery around our technical approaches, about our little fortress of knowledge that we like to have. and that we do things in a particular way, and that is the only way it should be done, and everybody else is wrong. And that's something that's crippling our industry in many, many ways. And the skills people are coming out into the industry, and I employ quite a lot of people, and I interview a lot of people, and we do get, unfortunately, graduates who turn up, made it through HR, made it through commercials, somehow managed to sit in front of me for a face-to-face interview. And if you get that far, you've gone through a lot of stages together. What we do find, and the people who we humour and throw out the door as quickly as possible and never speak to again, are the ones who I say, okay, here's a network. This is you, plugged into that gateway, what do you do? If they snap an answer, first of all, I'll get up Nmap, and then I will run this with these flags. No. That's not what we do. It's too formulaic. But that mindset of the being in your little comfortable zone of understanding what it is you want to do and how you want to do it in every given situation is not the thrust of pen testing. And the reason I wanted to talk about SCADA is because, slide's gone wrong. The reason I wanted to talk about SCADA is also because the SCADA testing industry are exactly that. They have almost built a fortress around what they want to do. They push out the message that, no, we know about this, nobody else should touch it. Really, they shouldn't. Because the SCADA experts are always trying to, like I said, build little fortresses around themselves and treat everything as being very, very precious. So what I'm going to dispel for you today is one of those myths around SCADA. Technology is technology. I spoke about methodologies a lot. One of the things I will firmly lay the challenge to anybody is bring me something and I will pen test it. Regardless of what we have looked at, whether we've seen it before, it could be a car system, it could be, we've actually pen tested on heating systems before. It really doesn't matter. You don't need to be a heating engineer to be able to reverse engineer a heating system and look for vulnerabilities. So let's get you started on SCADA. And there are only a few slides on this. One of the reasons I wanted this to be brief was also to prove actually how simple it is. What's ICS? You may hear that term. It's an industrial control system. It's not black magic. It's an industrial control system. It controls industrial systems. That's it. There is no more to it. It's probably Windows-based. It's probably an awful lot more familiar to you than you might imagine. But just because it's outside of your sphere of knowledge and outside of your comfort zone doesn't mean that you should be afraid of it or feel that you require specific industry experience or certification. What's SCADA? That's a system that talks to industrial control systems and gets information from it. That's all there is. You can draw analogies to industrial control systems and SCADA setups to SNMP in a standard office network. It's basically doing the same thing. You have an SNMP trap which is monitoring different systems. You hook into that and get information about what's up, what's down, who's doing what. That's it. It's as simple as that conceptually. Pen testing SCADA infrastructure does differ a little bit because we use some different tools. There's occasionally the odd little different tool, but not an awful lot. Let's get you fired up. Creating a developer's environment, nice and easy. There's two tools there you may not have heard of. There's Tango and Astor. You want to have a play around with some SCADA stuff. Everything else is pretty standard. I believe the slides will be available, so don't worry about these too much. A lot of this will be fairly familiar to most people. You've got MySQL, you've got databases there which house and give out data. You know, this is just a simple bit of technology. There's nothing really else to it. libtango Java is front end for replicating an ICS system. You do have to do a bit of work to get Tango working, as these aren't typically in repos. I mean, if everybody was mucking about with ICS stuff, then yeah, these would just be in standard repos, but you do need to add the keys, add the repositories, and then install libtango Java. That's it. That provides you with a tool called Astor. There you go. Once you've followed those steps, you have a completely customizable, portable ICS system sitting on your laptop, desktop, whatever you've installed it on. There's no black magic about this. It is simply technology. It's a system that provides information, and you are looking at ways of communicating with that system as an API. Nothing more. So once you've fired up your SCADA controller, you're ready. What do you do next? Bear in mind everything I've just said in the last 20 minutes or so. Well, there is no next step. It's whatever you want to do. This is where your pen testing starts, is by examining, following not a rigid methodology, but following a scientific methodology to observe what's in front of you, collate that information, hypothesize what could happen if you press that button there or drop a cat on that, and then test those hypotheses. Observe the results of those and just redo the cycle over and over again. So some of the tools that you can use are fairly standard. You will probably want to port scan it. You'll need to do some system fingerprinting, probing for services. Once you've got that, once you've got some information, you can do some exploit research. You can manually look for vulnerabilities and configurations, look for privilege escalations in your systems, test passwords if they're in place. There is no how to do a SCADA test. There is no real how to do a penetration test. And the maturity of the industry now is such that that is what we're telling people. And we're pushing people out into the industry saying that this is how a pen test is done. It's very all well and good saying, I can tell you how I like to do a pen test, but that's not necessarily how a pen test should be done. Oh. Unsee that. So what I'm really saying is take the precious away from those ivory towers which people are building them in. Because if we're going to satisfy client needs and the ongoing requirement for information security skills in the industry and globally going forwards, we can't remain containerized. We can't believe that the skills that we learn in one set of courses is going to be adequate enough to push us forward and actually replicate the activity of the malicious attacker. And the driver of having security testing done is to look for vulnerabilities that could be found by malicious actors, which are plentiful. The UK is under attack. Every country's under attack. I know our press like to make quote lots of figures about how much money we lose to cybercrime and cyber attacks every year. We're no different to anyone else. What is different between the professionals in the industry trying to shore up our defences and the criminals out there making a living out of us is that the criminals have no set methodology. They have no time limit. They have no scope of work. They have no legal constraints. Well, they do, but they ignore them. I'm not saying ignore legal constraints. And they have the time. They can spend 6 months, 12 months, however long it takes to examine systems, to probe at your different defences, to take as many imaginative routes to getting that data that they want to exfiltrate. And we as an industry need to adapt and start doing the same, start thinking a little bit out of the box. Oh. Got a hair trigger mouse. Oh, there we go. So, that may sound a bit disrespectful to people, particularly SCADA experts. And I'm not saying I'm an expert in SCADA. I like messing around with it. I've done plenty of tests. There are people who know more than I do, and that's fine. But trying to keep all of that away and say, no, 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 we should be doing that, is, in my mind, not the right track that we need to be taking. We do need to be respectful. We need to be respectful of everybody's skills, and we need to learn from everybody as well. And like I said, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. Now that's a very brief opening talk.